Uh, Raise your hand if you've ever felt significantly influenced, in a good way, by your friends. I'm not using the term peer pressure, because peer pressure can be good or bad. It sometimes connotes negative pressure. But raise your hand if you've ever felt like you've been significantly influenced in a good way by your friends. Right? Similarly, how many of you, hands up, if you've been influenced in a negative way? Where you say, oh, I kind of regret, you're smiling a lot for that hand raise. Where you say, I really regret having some impact from them on that one, right? Have you ever gotten into something maybe new because your friends were doing it, right? My parents had a saying, my mother especially when I was growing up, where when something was happening and all my friends were doing it, and I said, Ma, everybody's doing it about yourselves, your lives, and of course the faith, right? So today I want us to start thinking critically about our friendships, right? So we all have done this at some point. All of us have done this at some point. And I think it's because, go to the next slide for me. I think it's because friends are not just people that we hang out with. They're architects of who we become. Friends are not just people we hang out with. They're architects of who we become, right? So this week, again, we're continuing our series in our series called What's Your Story? You can go to the next slide, Matt. What's Your Story, right? Where we're... go back. Never mind.
Is it on?
Yeah, it's okay. This is not working. I'll tell you next slide. Hang on, Matt, just one second. We're digging into our series called What's Your Story, where we get into your life and we get into the story that God is writing of your life and how you can join him or participate in the writing of it. All right, now you can go to that next slide, right? So you remember in this series, we're talking about the 4 chapters of your story that God's writing, right? Week 1, we discussed, chapter 1 was your identity, right? Chapter 1 was your origins, right? When we were answering the question, tell me about yourself. Those of you who are here, you remember asking that question, tell me about yourself, and you're understanding your origins, how you came to be, what's your origin story, right? Week 2 was about your identity, and I still haven't taken my mirror home, so the mirror is here from last week. I know, look at my wife. She's like, how will I ever get ready, right? Last week was our discussion about identity, right? And we were asking the question, what do you see when you look in the mirror, right? And we're moving from our reflection to then seeing our identity, right? This week, I want to answer the question, who is the architect of who you become? Who is the architect of who you become? Where we're going to really try and think critically and engage the subject of God's handiwork through our friendships, right? God's handiwork through our friendships. Next slide. This week, we're going to discuss how God uses the friends that we had, past friends, friends that we have, current friends right now, and the friends that we add to shape who we become, right? To shape who we become. Listen, all of us are becoming something. The aim, at best, is that we become a little more like Yeshua, right? Remember last week we said that we become even more like children of God that God has made us, right? So the friends that we had, the friends that we have, and the friends that we add, and how they shape who we become. All right, next slide. I want you to think about this. Again, I'm not going to open this for discussion necessarily, right? But I want you to think critically about these questions. Think about a friend that you had when you were younger. Think about a friend, just one or several, if you can think about it. A friend that you had when you were younger. I guess younger than you are now, right? Some of you are young enough where it's like, if I think back, it's not a long trip, right? What's one thing that you learned or picked up from them that still sticks with you today? Just think of one friend that you had in the past when you were younger, in the past, and think of one thing that you learned from them that still sticks with you today, right? Was there ever a past friendship that led you down a path that you later realized was not so great, right? Some of you are like, was that friend me? Do I have that friend? Right? Think about this. Was there a past friendship in your past that led you down a path that you later realized, I didn't really want to go that route? How did you deal with it? Think about it just for a second in your notebooks or in your mind's notebook. Think about how you would respond to that, right? How did you deal with the friendship in the past that led you down a path that wasn't so great that you kind of wished, I wish I wasn't here, all right? God uses the friends that we had to shape who we become, right? And these are friends from your past, your childhood buddies, elementary school friends, people who influenced you early in life, right? Very basically, and follow me on this. The friends that we have are our past friends, right? So friends become past friends that we had in 4 different ways. 4 very simple, very different ways, 4 basic ways. Distance, drifting, drama, and death. Distance, drifting, drama, and death, right? Distance, very simply, they move away. You used to live in one city, you move to another city. The geography, more or less, breaks down that friendship. Despite all the technologies that can be afforded us in 2025, geography is a killer sometimes for our friendships, right? So distance can cause friends to be past tense, right? Past friends, right? Drifting. Look, life happens. It's not that anything bad happens. It's not that anybody moved, but life happens. They joined the band, you joined the chess team. They got a girlfriend, you got a puppy. Now all of a sudden you're not seeing each other anymore, right? I don't know, puppies take time, right? You joined the soccer team and now you're really good and you're traveling on weekends and you got to be on your teams with practice. Life just happens. And then you look back and you say, man, I remember I used to hang out with that person so much. We used to talk all the time. I haven't seen him in a while. You give enough time and it causes a drift. That's drifting, right? So they become your past friends by distance, drifting, and drama, right? How many of y'all know about friend drama? Everybody know about friend drama, right? This is the most common, obviously, right? Distance and drifting can happen, and it will happen as you get older and you have more friends and friend groups. But drama is that's the kicker, man. Something happens, and you got a friend that you think you're cool with, and all of a sudden y'all fall all the way out, right? And I shared a couple series ago with that one person who I was in ministry with, friends with, knew very well, and said, if I never see you this life or the next, I'll be fine, right? You fall all the way out with that person, right? Drama. And then there's death. Now, that may be less likely because you all are very young, right? And so your friends are going to be very young. So losing your friends that way at this age is going to be tragic, but it'll happen. It's less likely, but it's still part of friendships, especially as you engage the friendship cycle later in life, right? My dad's going to be 80 in a couple of weeks, and my mother's 4 years younger. As you start to get up in age, right? Your friends, my grandmother used to say, all my friends are dropping off, I'm still here, right? That sounds so morbid, but you have to start to learn this process of friend development and friendship life cycles. What I'm saying here is applicable now as a teenager as much as you're going to have to engage it again throughout all the stages of your life, right? Right? Distance, drifting, drama, and death, right? That's how you become past tense, right? But in some cases, before the person left the picture, a few of those friends, they laid some groundwork for who you are, right? For better or for worse, right? The friends might be gone, but their influence can stick around for years, right? So again, most of you are pretty young, so you may not have had the number of years to cycle through all of this many times over. But I imagine you can identify at least one friend, think of at least one friend that you had in the past that really meant something to you. Let me share this one. I got neutral, negative, and positive examples of friends in my past, right? So I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. Some of y'all know that I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. If you know football, you probably feel bad for me. And maybe not right now, but, right? Buffalo Bills fan. I became a Buffalo Bills fan thanks to Bobby Costo. We were living in a one-bedroom apartment, me, my sister, and my 2 parents. They would roll out the couch, and that was their bed, and we lived in the bedroom. We slept in the bedroom with bunk beds, me and my sister. And the downstairs apartment, a family moved in. They had 2 daughters and a brother, and the brother and I became friends. He was a little bit older, but he was a Bills fan, right? And he introduced me at a young age to football and video games. Video games didn't stick, football did. And he introduced me to the Buffalo Bills, right? So today, very simply, anybody say, how you become a Bills fan? You never grew up in Buffalo? You're not a native New Yorker? What's the deal? I tell them, I had a friend when I was a kid who introduced me to football. I fell in love with Buffalo. At the time, they were exceptionally good. And it may seem like nothing in terms of an influence, right? But hear this. My wife will tell you, I make a lot of choices during football season that impact my life, right? Right? And hers and my kid, right? We got to hurry up and get out of here because the game is on. Or I'm like this, streaming the game. 1 second, right? It's easy to jockey for your attention, right? For your time, your money, if you're paying subscriptions to get stuff, right? It seems like a small impact, right? Yeah, you made me a Bills fan. But look at the long-term impacts. That was 35, almost 40 years ago, right? I also had another friend when I was in first grade. His name was Charles, right? He was born and raised in Haiti, and so he spoke Creole. And he had a thicker accent to my recollection from first grade, right? And so he used to pronounce my name really funny. And looking back now, I'm saying to a first grader mind, right? I thought he pronounced my name funny, but it was because he had a Haitian accent, right? He spoke Creole. And so he and I would just laugh, and we would laugh in front of the class, laugh when we were separated, laugh, till the teacher put us way in the back of the class and laugh some more. And the two of us would just crack up like the entire time, like always get in trouble. That was kind of my first taste of troublemaking, right? And notice how it involved remember last week I was talking about how you're wired, right? Notice how it involved the ways that I was wired, right? I'm a talkative person. I was making connections through that conversations with him. I like to be funny. I enjoy humor. We were laughing, right? And I was involved at an early age with public displays. Now, remember I said this a couple weeks back about leadership. When you're maturing in the faith, when you're maturing as a person, and you're moving into positions of leadership, leaders will fail in front of everybody, and they'll succeed in front of everybody, right? So I kind of got my first taste of public attention, right? For good and for bad, right? I had the whole class laughing, but also had the teacher kind of upset at me, right? So setting a bad example in the class. Look, my wife's in elementary school, educator by trade, and so she's like, if he was in my class, I could see the face, right? So I had this influence of a friend that I had, right? When I was in high school, I had this influence of two friends of mine named Lucas and Adam, and in high school is when I got saved. I came to faith, professing faith, believing in Yeshua as Savior, and that was during my high school years. And I got saved because of my friendships, in part, that I had with Lucas and Adam, right? And even after I got saved, I started going to the church that they went to, right, at the time. I left the church I grew up in and started going with them, right? And so during that time, not only was I introduced to the faith from my peers at my age, but I also learned, because we were all inner city and we really enjoyed hip hop and all this kind of thing, that I learned that believers can still have a sincere, positive, urban expression of the faith, right? A sincere, positive, urban expression of the faith and of themselves, right? This is some of the friends that I had, right? So think about this for a second. I want you to think about the habits, the interests, and the mindsets that you picked up from past friendships. The habits, the interests, and the mindset. Next slide. Habits are what you do. I don't know if that's a little bit small, sorry, but habits are what you do over and over again, okay? Habits are what you do over and over again. Interests are what capture your attention, right? What capture your attention and keep it. There's plenty of things that might capture your attention but don't keep it. We might call those distractions, right? Or the attention span for that is very low. But what captures your attention and what keeps it? How are your friends contributing to your habits, your interests, and now to your mindset, right? That's your mentality, right? Your mindset, your mentality. Now, the habits, what you do over and over, I think you guys are pretty with it enough to understand applications and interests just the same, capturing your attention. But what about mindsets? I want to pause on this one for a second. Any of y'all have those friends that every single time you talk to them, they're always so pessimistic? Anything you say, I just won the lotto. It's a sunny day. I got my license. Dad gave me a new car. And then you go and tell them all of that, and they're like, yeah, but you got to pay for gas and insurance, and it's so expensive. Why are you being so negative, bro? Can't you celebrate? No matter what you do, no matter what happens to them, no matter what happens to you, they're so pessimistic. Hang around with them long enough, do you ever find yourself being negative too? No, never? No, I'm positive all the time, right? Or what about the people that are always positive, and then something bad happens and they're like, could we stop making it like sunshine and flowers and just have a bad day? Like, we need to cry this out right now. Right? So maybe it's like too much positivity, right? Or we just got to hug this out, right? Or maybe there's that person who influences your mindset in a salacious way, right? That they're always looking for the juicy gossip, right? You mentioned, oh, I was over here with so-and-so. Oh, yeah? What were you guys doing? Was so-and-so there? And now all of a sudden, they're trying to insert themselves into a scenario that they had no part of, but they want all the details about, right? Because they want to see what's happening. They start to influence your mindset, and you find yourself gossiping and wanting to know more about scenarios and people and situations that you got no business investigating or finding out about. You wasn't there. Mind your business. But the mindsets, the habits, the interests, the mindset, they start to influence you, right? So I want you to think about your past friends. I want you to think about your past friends. Hold on, Jules. That's what happens when you use your iPad and your brother-in-law calls you. No, that's all good. Habits, interests, and mindsets, right? Think about this with your past friends. Were they positive or negative influences, right? I told you, I got a neutral one, that's a Buffalo Bills fan. I got a negative one with my friend Charles. And I got a positive one with my friends who came to faith and helped me in my early years of faith, right? Were they positive or negative? Now, here's some action steps. Think about this in your notebook. Write this down. I'll have a slide for it, but pay close attention. Write down some of the characteristics that you discover from the friends that you had. Again, my aim today is to have you thinking critically about the friendships that you had, have, and are aiming to add, right? Once you identify the characteristics, right? If it's positive, build on it. Remember, the first week I said, once you find the pillars, build on the pillars. If you find patterns negative, let's break them, right? So give them to the Lord. The friends might be gone, but their influence can still stick around for years, right? And then not only give them to the Lord when you find stuff that you want to break, but ask the Lord to reveal to you how he used the friends of your past to shape who you become. I didn't come to realization about Charles or about Bobby Costo being saved. Adam and Lucas, that's kind of obvious how they impacted my life on some level. But I didn't think about Bobby or I didn't think about Charles. First grade, who thinks about first grade? Like, not me, not at 45, right? But you have to start to think about these past friends that you have and ask the Lord to reveal how he's used those friends to shape who you become, right? Positive and negative influence, habits, interests, and mindsets, and ask the Lord to reveal how he's using those friends to shape who you become, right? But God uses even more than the friends that we have. Next slide. He also uses the friends that he uses the friends that we presently have as well, right? So we can really take the same inventory of that list of habits and mindsets, right? And influences. We can take that same inventory and apply it to our past friends and our present friendships, right? But I want to move a little bit beyond that as we look at our current friendships, right? I've used this quote in the past before. You can go to the next slide, Matt. I've used this quote in the past before. It's from a motivational speaker from the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s called Jim Rohn. And he says this. He says, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? I've used this before. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And some of y'all are like, especially if you're homeschooled, you're like, man, that's all my family, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 brothers and sisters, right? Or maybe it's your friends. So I want to extend this a little bit more, right? And not to say for today, oh, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. But say maybe you might be the average of the 5 friends you spend the most time with. Let's start to take the same maybe assessment, right? So by extension, think of 5 friends. Think of 5 friends right now that you spend the most time with. Not the 5 people, right? Because that might be family or somebody else, right? Think of the 5 friends that you spend the most time with. Write their names in your notebook. Jot them down. Think of them in your mind's eye. Put down the 5 friends that you spend the most time with. Now, some of y'all introverted folks, you're like, I got 3. I can't get to 5. Put down 3. Right? Like, I don't like anybody. God's working on me. I got 2. Right? Does the puppy count? Right? Right? Put as many as you can, if not 5. Okay? I realize that, and I'm not trying to be funny about this, truly. I know that's hard. Some of y'all you just like, look, I don't have close friends like that. But think about the 5 or so friends that you spend the most time with, okay? Think about them. Now, during my prep time, I came across this article. Actually, it's really interesting for those of you who want to geek out. It's an article by David Burkus, B-U-R-K-U-S, David Burkus. And he actually dives into this average of 5 friends, of 5 people principle a little bit more. But in the article's called "You're Not the Average of the 5 People You Surround Yourself With," right? Because he's aiming to push this even further, right? So I'm saying push it to the 5 friends. He pushes it even further, and he says, listen, let's bottom line this in his article. He says, if your friends really matter, pay attention to their friends too. Right? You ever have a friend? Oh, I know everybody's going to say yes to this. You ever have a friend, you're like, man, me and you are cool, but you're cool with so-and-so? I can't stand them. I can't stand them. I wish I never saw them again, but I'm glad I like you because you're the buffer. Right? You're the buffer. I don't like them. I know you're friends with them. Okay, I got to deal with that because we're friends. But let's understand that you might have to take inventory of the friends of your friends, right? So what am I saying? I'm saying we can pull this back quite far, right? We can pull this back quite far to say, let's take the 5 people, let's take the 5 friends, and let's even take inventory of 5 friends of our 5 friends, right? Some of you are like, that's exponents. I'm not in math on that level yet, right? Right? Think about this. How far can we go? It gives us the opportunity to really take that inventory, right? This is important because, at least for me, I never thought to extend that to consider the influences that our friends' have. Now, I will say this as a caveat. Be very careful. If you start to do that, what that's going to do is allow you to see the influences in your life. What you want to make sure you're not doing, and I am not saying this, is not thinking that you can control that. Okay? So you can't control who your friends are friends with. You might be able to chirp in their ear, right? And maybe poison them a little bit or give them some advice about the friends that they have or keep. But again, you can't influence who your friends are friends with so much as the ultimate decision. But just keep in mind that if you're taking this inventory, you may not be able to control it, but you can see the influences, again, that God is using to shape you to who you're becoming. Right? So what should the friends that we have now look like? Right? And I think the Bible offers us some quick blurbs about what that should be. Next slide. Proverbs 13:20 says this: keep company with the wise, and you will become wise. If you make friends with stupid people, you'll be ruined. How many of us have some stupid friends? That wasn't. We got like half the room raise their hands, right? Right? It's that if you make friends with stupid people, the Bible, this, and I'm not really parsing the translation here. It pretty much means somebody who's empty-headed, right? This is what the language is trying to communicate. An empty-headed person. In English, we say the dummy, the stupid, right? You'll be ruined. Right? Bottom line is, what does that mean? That means that your friends will influence you, period, full stop, okay? Now, I hated to hear that as a teenager. I even hate to hear it as an adult because I'm like, don't you know I'm a grown man? Make my grown decisions, right? All this kind of thing, right? But I hated to hear it as a teenager. If your friends all jump off a bridge, would you do it too? But the fact of the matter is, your friends will influence you. They are, in part and parcel, the architects of who you become because God is using your friends to shape you into who you are becoming, right? Your friends are going to influence you, period. It's that simple. Stan, stick with me. Here, hang on. Just leave it on the floor if you're all done with it, just so you're not crinkling and crackling. All right, next slide. Proverbs 27:17. Thank you, Stan. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. As iron sharpens iron, so one person, and most of you guys have heard this once or twice before, probably thrown around, right, in believer settings, right? Your friends will challenge or push you to be better. Very simple, right? Your friends will influence you, and good friends will challenge you to push you to be better. Next slide. All right. So looking at your 5 closest friends right now, right? Ask yourself this question. It's a real question. How are they sharpening you? right? How are they sharpening you, pushing you to be better, right? What's one good habit or trait that you've picked up from them? What's one good habit or trait that you picked up from them? Now, I'm going to say this, and I'm just being honest with you guys. If you think, I don't know, I really haven't had any habit or trait that I've picked up from my friends, I'm just going to be frank. You're fooling yourself. You're fooling yourself. All of you have something about you right now that is a byproduct of the friends that you keep, right? Right? As a byproduct. So think of it, and it's not an indictment. It's not to hammer away. We didn't come in here to be like, oh, you're so terrible. Your friends are awful. Go home, right? That's not what I'm saying. Now, hear me on this. I'm just saying that you're at the ages now, right, where your brain is at the developmental level. You're at the social stages. You're maturing to the place where now you got to start asking yourself, yo, who's around you, right? Who's around you? Because it's going to be important for you to understand their influences, right? Is there anything about your current friendships that might be holding you back or pulling you away from who you want to become, right? Remember, God uses the friends we have to shape us into who he wants us to become. Next slide. And then finally, there's friends that we add, right? The friends that we add. Now, this is a little bit different because it's almost like thinking magically, like I'm talking about friends that don't exist yet for you. On some level, it's friends that don't exist, like people you haven't met. That's like me getting up here and saying, well, I'm going to talk about your spouses, your future spouses, right? Each one of you needs to start making decisions in line with the spouse you one day will have. That's very difficult to imagine. People used to say that to me all the time as a guy. You need to start thinking about the wife you're going to have and making decisions about that wife. And I'm like, I can't even see. Can I know her name? Right? And people started saying that to me at 17. That would have made her, what, 9? I don't want to think about a 9-year-old like that, right? But right? Like, I wasn't trying to think about that at 17. I was trying to drive a car and go to movies with girls. Like, what's going on? It's hard to envision the future friend, ultimately friend spouse, right, in that case, but the future friend. But bear with me. Use your imagination on the one hand. On the other, there's future friends that you wish you had because you seeing them from across the way. And you go, man, I wish I could hang out with that person. They look kind of cool. I think so-and-so seemed like somebody I could get along with, right? You see him from a distance. Maybe now's the time to start taking inventory of what kind of friends you want to add to your life for who you become, so you know who to approach and be like, hey, man, what's up? I don't know. How do people approach their friends nowadays? Do you say, hey, man, what's up? Hi, my name is, right? Simple, right? My name is, right? Think about this. It's about intentionality, right? That when you seek out people, you're seeking them out with intentionality and adding them into your circle. Next slide. 1 Corinthians 15 says this, do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. I wish I had time to get into this because Paul is actually quoting a Greek poet. So he's not even quoting like some Old Testament prophet. Very interesting how he pulls from a Greek poet to push the principle of who you allow in your friend group, right? Who you going to invite to your chat threads, right? And your group texts, right? The principle here is very simple. Be discerning about new influences. Be discerning about new influences. This is the friendship equivalent of somebody walking up to you with a cup of you don't know what and going, here, try this, right? Try this. You're going to have to do a little bit, like if I trust the person implicitly, I go, yeah, okay, boom, right? But if I don't really know you like that, like you're going to say, hey, what's in the cup, right? Right? And if you're at a party and there's all kinds of stuff going around in the cups, none of y'all go to those parties, right? Right? And you're somewhere where things are getting tossed around or snuck around, you might just say, well, what's in the cup? And especially if you're a girl, be on the lookout, because as you grow up, you have to be mindful. Don't drink a drink. Now I'm just getting practical, right? Can I do a little footnote for the women in the room? Don't drink a drink you don't know that you put it in there yourself or you didn't watch somebody pour it, right? Because as you start to graduate into more adult social circles, people will spike your stuff, right? And I'm not trying to instill fear. I'm not trying to be salacious in what I'm saying as an example, but these are things you want to be aware of. In like manner, you start to invite friends into your social circles. One of the friends I had, 6th grade? was like, oh man, this is the cool kid. Always time at the table, everybody's laughing with them, and they're popular. Oh, they're real funny. I want to go over there. Yeah, what's up, man? What's going on? And here he comes with a book bag. What's in the book bag? Oh, some nudie magazines and movies that I took from my older brother. Yo, you want to see? You want to see? Look, here. I'll lend it to you. Hold it. Just bring it back tomorrow. And what am I doing? Going back to pornographic movies, right? And all of a sudden, those friends that I wanted to allow into my circle were bringing in poison. They were roofieing my drink, so to speak, right? Be careful. And I know you can say, oh, that sounds extreme. But it can be real subtle stuff from the friends you let in your group, and they're just lazy, and they don't want to do nothing but play Fortnite for 60 hours straight. And you would like to maybe one day go to college. That's not a good combination. That doesn't mean you can't be cool with them. That just means you have to be very wise and take inventory about the influences and the friendships. Again, be discerning about new influences, right? Think about this for a second. What kind of person do you want to become in the next few years, right? Most of y'all are at the age where people start asking you, where do you want to go to college? What do you want to be when you grow up, right? Are you starting to get that question? Some of you may be a little young, right? But what kind of person do you want to become in the next few years? What values are important to you in a new friend that would help you on that path? And then think about it this way. How can you be the kind of friend to others that you would want to add to your own life, right? I want to be a friend that somebody goes, yeah, let's put Josh Ortiz on that social circle list, right? I want him to be a part of my friend group, right? Because he's a good influence. He's positive. He brings out the best in me. He helps me become who God is trying to make me become, right? All right, so Yeshua did this too. Next slide. Yeshua did this too, right? He said, you did not choose me. He says this to his 12 disciples, including Judas, by the way. You didn't choose me. I chose you, and I have called you my friends, right? I've called you my friends. And I want to think about this for a second, right? Mr. Sam, who's streaming? Sam's not done yet? He's on his third point. Okay, I got a second. Stick with me here. Yeshua did exactly what I'm asking you all to do. He added to his friend group. You can say, Joshua, he did a divine calling. God gave him into his hand, people to be his disciples that he would send out into the world. Don't over-spiritualize it. Dude got a bunch of 12 guys, got them together to be a part of his ministry, and he said, you guys are my friends, right? Not my employees, not even my little me's, right? You're you, but you're my friends, right? So he did exactly this. He added, right? So next slide. I'm going to read this. I want you to pay close attention. I don't have a slide for this, but listen to this. And I think it's going to be valuable to you as you think about the friends that you add. Ultimately, the friends that you had, that you have, and that you add. But think about this, right? Look at every one of the 12 disciples. I tried to distill this into something that could be meaningful to you, so listen close. Simon Peter, everybody knows Peter, right? The bold leader with a big heart. Peter was outgoing. He was always ready to speak his mind and ready to jump into action. Even in the garden, he cut off Malchus's ear with his sword trying to defend Yeshua from getting arrested, right? He was a natural leader, and he was full of enthusiasm, even if he sometimes acted before he was thinking, right? Some of y'all got friends, right? They act first and then think later. Biblical facts. Think about these facts. He was a fisherman called by Yeshua to be a fisher of men, Matthew 4. He famously walked on water. We remember that story. Even if it was for a brief moment, that's a brief moment more than me or you, Matthew 14, right? He gave the Shavuot, the Pentecost sermon in Acts 2, the big addition to the body of Messiah. He was the first to declare Yeshua as the Messiah, the Son of the living God, in Matthew 16. And tradition holds that he was crucified upside down because he felt unworthy to die in the same manner as Yeshua, right? So he was crucified upside down. Martyr for the faith. Andrew, the quiet introducer. Andrew was Peter's brother, but he was quieter. He had a heart for bringing people to Yeshua, right? He was a disciple of John the Baptizer before he was following Yeshua, right? John 1. He brought and introduced his brother Peter to Yeshua in John 1. And he was the one who told Yeshua about the boy with the loaves and the fish, you remember, where there was multiplied over to feed the 5,000. And tradition states that Andrew actually was martyred by crucifixion in an X shape. So the Romans had all kinds of crazy, inventive ways to be torturous, absolutely brutal. So not just the regular crucifix like you understand with Yeshua, but an X-shaped crucifix, and sometimes they would even do it upside down. But it killed you all the same, martyred for the faith. Then you had James, right? The son of Zebedee, as most of us know, the one of the two sons of thunder, right? James was part of Yeshua's inner circle. A lot of times you'll see Yeshua go do the exceptionally powerful stuff and more intimate works in his ministry, and he takes Peter, James, and John, right? And he was part of Yeshua's inner circle, known for his fiery spirit and deep commitment. He was ambitious, passionate, and sometimes intense, but always loyal, right? Yeshua nicknamed him and his brother, John, Boanerges, right? That means sons of thunder, likely because their personalities were like the thunder, right? They were intense, right? Mark 3 is the reference, right? Along with Peter and John, he witnessed Yeshua's transfiguration in Matthew 17. He was the first apostle, really, to be martyred in Acts 12, and he was executed by King Agrippa around 44 AD, making him the first apostle to suffer martyrdom for the faith. Not the faith like Old Testament writ large. I'm talking about for Yeshua post-ministry, right? It's a big deal. Then you had John, the other beloved disciple, right? This one is said, John is the disciple whom Yeshua loved, right? Suggesting a particularly close relationship, right? He was thoughtful, deeply spiritual. His writings reveal profound understanding of Yeshua's love, right? He was the only disciple present at the foot of the cross, as far as we have from the Gospels, when Yeshua was crucified, John 19. He wrote the Gospel of John and the three epistles, 1st, 2nd, 3rd John, and the book of Revelation. He ran with Peter to an empty tomb after hearing Mary Magdalene's report in John 20. Tradition says that he lived longest of all the apostles, dying of natural causes in Ephesus, right? Because he was exiled to the island of Patmos, living on an island for the rest of his days. That's actually where he wrote Revelation, right? Philip, he was practical and inquisitive. He was often the one asking practical questions, looking for logical explanations. He was a seeker of truth and eager to share what he found with others. He was from Bethsaida, and it was the same town as Andrew and Peter, right? Yeshua tested him and asked him, how are you going to feed the 5,000 people that are coming in John 6? He brought Nathanael to Yeshua and said, come and see, right? John 1. Tradition states that he was martyred by crucifixion in Ephesus as well, right? Then you have Bartholomew. Some of us are like, man, how did we know? How did we never heard all the names at once of all the disciples, right? Bartholomew, sometimes known as Nathanael, depending on which gospel. He was an honest skeptic. Bartholomew was also known as Nathanael, and he was skeptical, but he was open-minded. He was known for his honesty, integrity, and once he believed, he was all in, right? Thomas, doubting Thomas, as many of us have heard him called, unfortunately. He was devoted. He was inquisitive. He was famous for his initial doubts, but he was also incredibly loyal and courageous, right? He needed to see to believe, but once he saw, he was convinced, and his devotion was unwavering. Matthew, also called Levi, the tax collector, right? He was known as Levi. He had a past that many looked down upon as a tax collector, but Yeshua saw his potential and transformed him into a faithful follower of the gospel. James, different James. This one, actually, in tradition, he's called James the Lesser. That's an unfortunate nickname, right? But he's often called James the Lesser, James the Younger, but he's supposed to be Yeshua's brother, right? Is by tradition. Right? That he's Yeshua's brother, right? But not much is written about him, but he was faithfully chosen by Yeshua and served alongside the rest of the 12 disciples. Maybe some of y'all got friends in your friend group that they go unnoticed. That if there was ever a book written about your friend group, they wouldn't even make a chapter. But sometimes the wallflowers still have an impact, right? Maybe that's you, or maybe that's your friend, right? Thaddeus, the one of the disciples that nobody ever remembers Thaddeus, right? But he was a questioning devotee, right? He was also known as Jude. He was another one of the less prominent disciples, but he showed devotion and understanding and asking Yeshua clarifying questions. And you see that in the Gospel of Luke and John 14 and elsewhere. Simon the Zealot, different from Simon Peter. Simon the Zealot, who was by zealot, right? He was passionate. He was a fighter, a revolutionary, as they call, bless you. Simon was a zealot. He was a Jewish nationalist. He was intensely passionate about freedom from Roman rule. And it was interesting how Yeshua chose him to unite him with the rest of his group that ultimately probably would have never been friends with him without Yeshua choosing him to be part of the group. And last but certainly not least, Judas, right? The tragic betrayer. Sometimes we feel like even in all of our friend groups, we got that one, what's a polite way to put it? That one snake, right? Where you like, man, I wish we could get rid of this person, but I know they're around, and they're around for a reason, right? He was a complex and tragic figure, Judas, but he was entrusted with the group's money, right? And ultimately, he chose to betray Jesus, Yeshua. A decision that led to his own despair, and he, the Bible accounts, committed suicide, took his own life out of guilt, right? So what do I want you to walk away with from understanding, okay, all of these disciples, what does that mean, right? In your own friendships, remember that true strength comes from embracing differences. This list of 12, these were various and vastly different folks, and they all came together with one mission around one person, right? That your friends, though they may be different, right, you can still have strength in your friendships by embracing those differences, right? And then remember, Yeshua didn't pick perfect people. He picked real people with real struggles, right? Real people with real struggles. So as we're starting to take this inventory, I want all of us to start to consider not only the folks that Yeshua added, right, which was a band of crazy, but the ones that we're adding, right? The ones that we had, that influence, the ones that we have, that we want to keep and build on, and the ones that we're adding, okay? All right, Father, I thank you for this time. I pray that you would seal these reflections to our hearts, and I ask that you would be with each and every one of us as we, by your Spirit, are guided to reflect on the past, consider the present, and move in the future of our friendships and who we are becoming in you, in Yeshua's name. Amen.